Welcome to our explainer, where we're going to dig into a super simple idea that completely turned the world of manufacturing upside down. We're talking about one-piece flow. So let's jump right in.
Okay, let me start by asking you a question. What's more efficient, making 100 of something all at once, or making them one by one by one? Now, for the better part of a century, the answer seemed totally obvious, right? Of course you make them all at once. But what if that's completely wrong?
Yeah, for decades, the answer was a resounding yes. Bigger is better, bigger batches mean more efficiency. But then, in post-war Japan, Toyota, a company that literally couldn't afford to be wasteful, came up with a system out of pure necessity. And it didn't just challenge that assumption, it blew it out of the water.
So first, let's really get into this weird, counterintuitive idea, what I like to call the batching paradox.
You know the traditional thinking, right? It makes sense on the surface. If you've got to set up a giant, complicated machine, you might as well run as many parts as you possibly can. It looks efficient. It feels productive. You see machines humming, people are busy. That's the logic of old-school manufacturing. But here's the kicker. This is the question Toyota started asking. What if that feeling of being super efficient is just an illusion? What if making these huge batches is actually creating enormous, invisible problems that are secretly slowing everything down?
Okay, so now let's pull back the curtain a little bit and see exactly what kind of waste is hiding in plain sight with this old batching method.
This quote right here, it gets to the absolute heart of the Toyota Production System, or TPS. It's not just a bunch of tools or charts. It's a relentless philosophy, and it is laser-focused on one single thing: hunting down and eliminating waste wherever it hides. The Japanese have a fantastic word for this: muda. And muda basically means any activity that uses up resources, time, money, materials, but doesn't add any real value that the customer would be willing to pay for. Think about things like waiting, or having piles of extra inventory, or even just unnecessary movement.
Now, this is one of my favorite analogies ever. Think of your inventory as the water in a river. When you produce in big batches, the water level is really, really high, and that deep water hides all the nasty rocks on the riverbed, things like broken machines, quality defects, bottlenecks. You don't even know they're there. But when you lower that water level, suddenly you see all the problems and you're forced to deal with them.
So if batching is the villain that hides all these problems, what's the hero of the story? Well, the answer is this radical, beautiful idea: creating a smooth, continuous flow. And you got to understand, this philosophy didn't just pop up overnight. It evolved piece by piece over decades. It started way back with a loom that was smart enough to stop itself if a thread broke. Then that grew into the idea of just-in-time, and eventually it became the powerful system we study today.
Just-in-time, or JIT, is the first huge pillar of the system. It's all about flipping manufacturing on its head. Instead of pushing products out and hoping they sell, you create a pull that starts from the actual customer. You basically don't make anything until the very next step in the process says, "Hey, I'm ready for it now."
And this leads us to the ultimate goal, the holy grail of JIT. It's called continuous flow, or as it's more famously known, one-piece flow. The dream is to have a single product moving, like a baton in a relay race, from the start of the process to the very end, without ever stopping, without ever waiting in a pile.
All right, let's put these two ideas in the ring and see what happens. When you put batching and flow side by side, the difference is, well, it's absolutely staggering.
So just picture it. With batch processing, you've got these huge stacks of half-finished stuff just sitting around, collecting dust, waiting between every single step. But with continuous flow, a single piece is always moving. It's a living thing, constantly having value added to it. It never stops. And if the picture doesn't convince you, the numbers are just plain crazy. Look at this. To make the same number of things each day, the batch process has over 100 times more stuff just lying around as inventory, and it takes 10 times longer for a single product to get from start to finish. It's just wildly inefficient.
This chart just slams the point home. This isn't a small 10% improvement. We are talking about a 90% reduction in lead time, the total time a customer has to wait. That's not an improvement. That's a revolution. It changes everything about how you can serve your customers.
So, this brings us to the most important part. This isn't just about moving parts around differently in a factory. It's about a completely different way of seeing your work. It's about learning to think in units of one.
And the payoffs for thinking this way are immense.
I mean, obviously, read times plummet, so you're way faster. You need less space, you have less cache tied up. But here's the really big one: quality. If you make a mistake on one piece, you find it right now, not after you've made 1,000 bad ones. That alone gives you unbelievable flexibility and a huge boost in quality.
So, in the end, creating flow becomes the engine for continuous improvement for what's known as Kaizen. It's this amazing virtuous cycle. The better your flow, the more problems you see. And the more problems you solve, the better your flow gets. It just keeps getting better and better.
And look, this idea is so much bigger than just making cars. Think about your own work, your own life. Do you let hundreds of emails pile up into one giant, stressful batch to deal with later? Do you tackle big projects in huge, overwhelming chunks? Take a second and ask yourself, where is batching hiding problems in my life? It's a pretty powerful question.